Of that money into Live and Die in LA, it was made on one side only, the gray side or the green side. And one of the special effects men took some of it home and put it on his dresser. And he had 2 teenage sons. And they came in one day and saw a pile of these 20s on their father's dresser. They took it to a shopping center or a drugstore or something, and they tried to buy some stuff. The sales lady said, "Hang on just a second." And she went away, and within 10 minutes, the Treasury agents were there. "Where'd you get this money?" And blah, 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 and this and that. And our father, your father, huh? Okay. They went to him. "Where'd you get this money?" "Well, the prop man on this movie." So they knocked on the prop man's door at 3 o'clock in the morning. The feds banged on his door. Counterfeit, boom, open the door. Get on your knees, boom. He's a prop man. He's done almost all of my films. His father was the special effects man on The French Connection. Worked alone. No CGI, nothing. But, so they browbeat this guy, and he finally said, "Well, the director of the film was Billy Friedkin, and here's his phone number." So, I called Jerry Petrovich, who was a Secret Service agent who wrote this novel about his experience. I said, "What do I do if they call me, Jerry?" He said, "Tell them if they don't have a warrant to go fuck themselves." So I got a call from the U.S. Attorney for the state of California. His name was Robert Bonner. Called me, "Mr. Friedkin, yeah. I'd like to come over and talk to you and blah, or have you come down here." I said, "Do you have a warrant?" And he said, "Oh, no, you're not going to play it that way, are you?" I said, "I'm not playing it." I said, "Do you have a warrant?" "No, we don't. We just want to talk." I said, "Go fuck yourself." And that's basically been my approach to filmmaking.
I want to take a few questions from the audience. You must be burning to ask some stuff.
Yeah, but only intelligent questions.
Yeah.
No, how did you make the head spin? None of that stuff.
Yeah. We got one way up in the back there, and then you. Yeah, yes.
Your car chase sequence seems like one big improvisation. Can you briefly go over how you put that together? It seems very organic.
I'm going to repeat the question just for the recording. Your chase scenes almost seem like one long improvisation. Could you talk about their development and how you realized that?
I never do storyboards. I have to envision the scene in my mind's eye. And then I might do quick little sketches, just a handful for the crew, and then we go out and shoot it. And in The French Connection, there were a lot of accidents. There weren't supposed to be any crashes in that scene. But these guys missed and crashed, and I only had one car, one chase car. So we had to fix it up and go back and do the next shot. But I don't storyboard. The producer and I walked the streets of New York for 55 blocks. We said, this was a few weeks before we started the film. We didn't have a chase in the script. It's not scripted. But we knew we needed to have one because basically it's a police procedural movie without that chase. And so we said we're going to set off from my apartment and walk and not turn around until we come up. Now we're walking down the streets of New York. I hear the subway rumbling beneath my feet. I see the smoke coming out of the ground. I see traffic, sort of doing its own thing everywhere. And we started spitballing ideas. And I don't even know who came up with what at which times. What if it's what if it's a car chasing an elevated train? Well, are there any elevateds left in New York? I don't know. Let's find out. Can't be a subway, obviously, but the subways come out of the ground. Are there any elevated lines left? We found out there were. There were 2 lines left, both in Brooklyn. One was the Myrtle Avenue line, and this was the Stillwell Avenue line from Coney Island. And so we found out, yes, there was a train. So now I needed to know how fast did an elevated train go. Because if a guy was going to chase it in a car, if an elevated train could do 100 miles an hour, I couldn't do this chase. So we came up with it. We had nothing in writing. But Tony, he was the producer, and I went to the Transit Authority. And there was a gentleman, he was an African-American gentleman there, who had the authority to let us do this or not. And we told him the idea we had. And he said, fellas, he said, it's going to be very difficult. He said, first of all, we've never had elevated trains crash. And second, we've never had an elevated train heisted by anybody. It's just never happened. And it's really difficult. And I said, well, okay. I said, but in my mind, I was going to steal the scene. I would just go out and do it without his permission. I said, how fast can an elevated train go at its fastest? He said 50 miles an hour. So I knew that we had a possibility to do it. We talked a little more. He wasn't giving an inch. Finally, we got up to leave. We said, thank you very much. I planned to steal the scene. And thank you. He said, wait a minute. Yeah. He said, I told you it'd be difficult. I didn't say it was impossible. So my producer is a Sicilian. And he understood that very well. and we saw that counterfeit money. We sat down with him and we said, what would it take to get your permission to do this? He said, without blinking, he said $40,000 and a one-way ticket to Jamaica. And we said, our budget, remember, is $1.5 million. And we said, well, why a one-way ticket? He said, because if you make this film the way you told me, I will be fired. And I want to live in Jamaica. And he was fired, and he lives in Jamaica.